again, my friends. It's Judy Covington, co-founder of Missionary Church International, continuing with the teaching on choosing the right tools for sharing the gospel. If you remember the last time we were together, we talked about Jesus' healing of the paralytic and how he used that occasion to demonstrate that he could also forgive sins by doing what seemed to be the harder thing, which was restoring the man to health and fitness. Today, I want to talk about the second incident in Mark. In between, we have the calling of Levi or Matthew as a disciple, and that he, after he called Levi, Matthew gave a great feast for him, and a lot of sinners and tax collectors came and ate with Jesus. Well, we see the Pharisees and the teachers of the law said, why is he doing this? Doesn't he know that these are sinners and tax collectors? Why is he messing around with those people? Jesus' response is the sick who need a doctor, not the well. And then they also had a question about John's disciples, and the Pharisees got together to ask Jesus how come he wasn't fasting. And the Pharisees and John's disciples did, and Jesus answered that as long as the bridegroom is here, there'll be no fasting, but when the bridegroom is gone, that will be time enough. So the second incident I want to talk about here in Mark is that Jesus is walking through the grain fields. Now, it is important. It is the Sabbath. And you know, God set up the Sabbath day. God is the author of the Sabbath day. He says everybody needs a day of rest. Everybody needs a day of contemplation, of worship, of resting from their regular duties. And so God set up the Sabbath. It's a God thing. However, the Pharisees had added about between 1 and 10,000, I don't know how many, maybe you do, rules about the Sabbath, about how far you could walk. So the rich people would buy a square foot of land that required distance from their house. And then when they got there, that was theirs. And so they could go another distance and get another square foot. And so they were actually keeping the letter of the law, but not the spirit of it. So Jesus' Sabbath day, Jesus is walking through the grain fields. And his disciples, as they walked along, they picked some heads of grain and rubbed them in their hands and ate them. And the Pharisees, they said they are doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath. Now, it wasn't unlawful to take the grain from somebody else's field. You were permitted to do that as long as you didn't put any in your pocket. You could pick as much as you could eat. So, but the Pharisees said they are breaking the Sabbath. They are doing work. They are threshing grain. And so Jesus' answer to them is, have you ever read about what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar, the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is only lawful for the priest to eat. And he also gave some to his companions. If you remember the story, David is running from Saul. Saul's going to kill him. He has ample evidence. He's got to get away. And as he's running, he comes to this home of the priest, Abiathar, the high priest, and he asks him if he got any bread. Abiathar says, well, all I have is the bread from last week, which is it's the consecrated bread, it's the showbread. And only the priests are supposed to eat it. That's all I have. And David said, well, yes, that's fine. Give it to me. And so he took it and gave it also to the people who were running away with him. Now, Jesus does not say, but it is implied that there was not a crack of thunder, bolt of lightning that struck David dead. Apparently, this was okay with God, what David did. And so he's explaining to them that there's the Sabbath. He goes on to say the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So all these rules you've added, the Sabbath was intended to give man a needed break, a rhythm to his week, a rhythm to his life, And if any of you have a grandfather clock, you have to wind it once a week. That's another reminder that we need a pause. We need to pause in our lives. So Jesus says the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Now, he could have shut up right there. But he went on to say, using the same term that he used with the paralytic healing, the Son of Man, referring to himself, is Lord, even of the Sabbath. So what he's doing here is he's saying, I'm the Son of Man. Once again, back in Daniel, the Son of Man is seen as someone who comes to judge right alongside God, the Father. And he's saying the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath. And the Sabbath, we know, was instituted by God and was meant for the purpose of giving people a rest and a rhythm to their lives, so that they would have this day not only to rest, but to worship. And they didn't have the demands on them of everyday life. They could worship. So that is the second thing that Jesus does to show us. So what he's doing here is Jesus is doing God things. The people that are there, the teachers of the law, the ones that could recite the law. And we're not talking about just scriptures. We're talking about all those thousands of rules they added, which put a burden on the people that was really too heavy to bear. Another time, Jesus rebuked them by saying they heap these burdens on people, and they won't even lift a finger to help them. They just burden people down with all their rules and laws. If we can keep the 10 Commandments, we'll do well. So he has told them, as far as forgiving sins, that he's capable of doing that. That is definitely a God thing. And now he's telling them that the Sabbath day is a day that is made for man, and that he, the Son of Man, is the Lord even of the Sabbath. I'm going to leave you for a minute or two, and I'll be right back. I'll tell you what I'm doing is baking bread, and I have to go and check on it. So this is one of the advantages of living next door to your office, is you can go home and bake some bread. Be back in just a bit.
Thanks so much for watching TMCI TV. If you found any benefit in this episode, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date with our future videos. If you are interested in planning a church, starting a ministry, or looking for 501c3 tax exemption status for your existing church or ministry, TMCI can help. Click the link in the description below for more information. We look forward to hearing from you soon. God bless.